We are recording. Welcome, everybody. My name is Seth Bush. I am the advocacy manager at Bike Pittsburgh. I use he, him pronouns. And you are at our first quarterly advocacy network gathering of 2024. This is a space and an opportunity for advocates to come together from all over the city to learn together, to talk shop together, to support one another, for us at Bike Pittsburgh to share upcoming events and programs and more training and learning opportunities, campaigns that we're working on. We try to do these 4 times a year, twice on Zoom at the beginning of the year and end of the year, and then twice in person. So you can look forward to some in-person gatherings with pizza and other delicious things coming up later this year. I think in June and September are our next in-person ones. Tonight we're gonna, I guess, start a tradition, maybe hopefully a tradition that we get to continue, where we are joined by the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, and tonight also the mayor's office. We did this last year, and it was just a really good start to the year to kind of, as paving season and the asphalt plants are just about to open right around the corner. It's a great opportunity to learn, okay, so we've got our capital budget from last year. What is actually in the hopper for this year? Both in terms of implementation and construction, and also in that planning phase, or even a little bit further off. We have a lot of exciting updates since the last time that DOMI was here to talk, especially Vision Zero, that commitment that we got from the mayor earlier or last week, and then that council just passed out of committee their resolution yesterday, and we'll be voting on next week. So I think it really puts the city in an exciting moment for making change that creates safer streets. So something I neglected to do while we were all gathering here, we got a lot of folks, and the beautiful thing about Zoom is you can see each other's names. So we're not going to do intros, but I'd love it if you could put in the chat your name, your neighborhood, your bike ped committee, if you have one, and a piece of bike or pedestrian infrastructure you've been appreciating recently. Maybe that's a new one, maybe that's one that's been around for a while, but introduce yourself in the chat just so we can get a sense of where people are joining us from and what you're excited about. And while you're doing that, Eric, can I pass it over to you to introduce yourself and introduce Bike Pittsburgh for those who are maybe brand new to us, and what this advocacy work is broadly that we're up to together.
Sure thing. I'm Eric Bohr. I'm the advocacy director at Bike Pittsburgh. I recognize a lot of you on this call, but some I don't. In short, we are the city and sort of surrounding municipalities bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization. We're around 3,000 members, so if you're not a member, I really encourage you to become so. It really helps us out. And one of the things that we do, among many, is we do events, open streets you might have seen. We do Pedal Pittsburgh, and we do a lot of education stuff. But one of the other things we do on the advocacy side is really try to work with advocates like yourself to help understand how the city works, and get together with your neighbors to help push for change in your community. We've been at this, have this structure for a pretty long time. So if you're new to this, be sure to reach out to Seth, and he can help connect you to your local bike ped committee. This is what we call them. I think, am I forgetting anything? I think that covers the basics.
Perfect. I'm just putting a link in the chat for folks. We're about to launch our next round of intro to bike ped advocacy calls. The dates will be up on our website soon, and you can go to bikepgh.org/advocacy/get involved to find out what those are. I'm hoping to get them up tomorrow. So when I send you the follow-up email to this, I will send you some links to both our upcoming intro calls and our booster calls, where you can bring challenges, opportunities, ideas, and kind of just get some support to figure out what your next steps are with those in a community of like-minded advocates. And those are both really great opportunities to plug in if you're new to our space. So with that, I'm gonna just what our plan is for tonight. Again, we have these fantastic guest speakers from DOMI, the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, in the mayor's office. They're going to share a presentation with us, and then we have some questions and times for questions and answers. Eric and I have some updates to share with you about Vision Zero, safe trips in the Strip, some other projects that we're working on, events coming up. And after that, hoping we have some time, I'm really excited to share with you this tool that I know some of you have seen, which is called Project Sidewalk, which is essentially a way that you can do a virtual walk audits in your neighborhood using Street View with this really cool piece of software that we've been given access to for free here in Pittsburgh. And I want to give you a tour and show you how you can use it, and we can have a little bit of a discussion about how you might actually engage with it in your bike ped committees or even on your own. Breen is clapping because she's been working on getting it ready to share with you with me. So, and then we have some room just for any general updates from bike ped committees if you have some news that you want to share or things like that. So that's where we're headed tonight. I'd love to introduce Paige Anderson, who is the project manager at the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, and Jan Rather from he's the infrastructure engagement specialist in the mayor's office. They're here to tell us about what the city is planning for this year regarding complete streets, neighborhood traffic calming, and the recently announced commitment to Vision Zero. I also just want to acknowledge these two for a marathon of evening meetings this week. I know Paige was at least, this is her second evening meeting. Maybe she had more that I don't know about. Both of these two were at our Stanton Ave meeting last night about traffic calming and bike lanes. Last night, and I know Jan also had a public meeting about the Swindell Bridge on Tuesday evening. So I just want to applaud these two for also being with us tonight and talking with us after hours on a frankly beautiful evening. Just a few bottom line norms, kind of Jan is really good at this, so I want to share these two. Please hold your questions until after their presentation, or you can put them in the chat and we'll save them for that time, and Eric will keep tabs on them. If you have something to say when the time comes, please use the raise hand button and I will kind of moderate us and call on you. Of course, please be respectful. If there are disagreements present, disagree respectfully. This is obvious, never a problem for our group, but it bears repeating because we really value Jan and Paige's time and effort here so very much. And of course, we always strive to create an inclusive space that welcomes diverse perspectives and backgrounds. So we're all practicing and working on that together. Without further ado, I turn it over to you two, Paige and Jan. And I'm going to actually spotlight, well, you're going to screen share, so never mind. I'm not going to spotlight you. So take it away.
Hey guys, thanks for having us. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces, and thank you for those of you who've also been with us in this marathon of meetings. I know you all have important things in your life, and it's nice of you guys to be here. I'm going to share my screen. I don't have, a very super in-depth presentation today, but I do think that it'd be best to talk about some of the Vision Zero stuff. It's kind of new to me. I'm more of on the implementation side, as some of you may know, because I manage the projects as they go through design and construction. But I've learned a lot in the past couple of weeks about what our policy and planning people have been up to, and this new Vision Zero policy. And we're going to take a while to kind of figure out what it means for us longer term. But I think there's some really exciting things that have got me fired up. So I thought maybe that would be best to start with, and then I can talk a little bit about what I know our project load will look like, especially from the Traffic Bureau, which means our traffic calming program, complete streets kinds of projects, and some of the other things we'll see on the horizon. But first, let me share my screen. Can you guys see this okay?
Yes, thank you.
So you guys know this is publicly accessible. Let me see this. Yes. So this is the Engage page for the Complete Streets Advisory Group, which I imagine some of you, there might be a few people here that have are participating in this, but all of this is on here. So I just want to let you know, this is the full presentation. I'm going to skip most of it because it's pretty extensive. And I know we want a lot of other things we want to talk to, but I hid a lot of the slides and just kind of want to jump to the ones that seemed, most exciting. So forgive me if if this is like out of context. If there's a lot of things going in the chat where people seem confused, feel free to interrupt Eric or Seth, and we can like clarify. And again, I'm like relaying most of this information so I can try to answer your questions, but I didn't come up with this. Okay, so I'm skipping to like the middle because I think it's really some really interesting things for the bike ped groups that you'd be interested in is just some of the analysis our policy folks have done about just how many more cyclists there are in Pittsburgh, which I think we all know if cyclists kind of recognize each other, and it's very obvious how dramatically it's increased, but it's nice that we have some numbers to support that. 5 years is not that, or I guess that's 4 years is not that long. So a 27% increase in mode shift is huge. So it's exciting work. And I think we got a long ways to go, and hopefully we can keep the momentum going. But also we've had some decrease in pedestrian trips. I'm not sure, I'm sure the pandemic played a role in this, and it's all complicated, but I think that there's probably a lot of contributing factors. But we'd like to see, pedestrian trips increasing, ideally. So I'm kind of just going to jump to this part in the middle that I think is really important, and that's the J40 neighborhoods. J40 neighborhoods, I think and Jan might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on some of this, but I think it's like a federal determination that we have kind of adopted. Justice 40 is, I think, what J stands for. So we just want to make sure that the federal investments flow to disadvantaged communities, that we're bringing in like a strong equity component. I know a lot of other places have started to use this too. It should help us apply for grants and kind of make sure that we are competitive for that federal money. And also I think it's a really valuable determination. And I think I could be wrong. Okay, at one point I'm going to talk about the high injury network, and there's a map, and I believe there's a J40 like layer on that GIS tool that I'll show you later, so you could look into more. But this is the map overall, from a citywide view. And so 1 in 3 Pittsburghers live in a J40 community. So we're going to try to concentrate a good amount of our resources towards these communities that will value the most from mobility improvements. Of course, that doesn't mean all, but now just to jump back to some of our like completed projects, just to kind of show where we're at. A lot of this isn't just the last year, it's all from 2019, because this was a large review for city council, but we've done a lot of work for sidewalks, which I think is some of the most exciting things. I think when I started working I've been at the city since 2017, and I think early days it was tough because with policies the way they are, where it's the responsibility of the adjacent landowner, it's really hard to repair sidewalks. So we've made big strides in finding funding that didn't used to exist at all and building out this very basic pedestrian infrastructure. So over 6 miles of sidewalk, that's very, very expensive and very difficult to get in. So I think it's really exciting. If you want to learn more about sidewalks, there is a critical sidewalk gap program with its own Engage page that you can check out to learn more about projects we've completed and upcoming sidewalk projects. We've also spent a lot of work on the city steps, 15 projects. Again, these are like not easy or cheap projects, so I can really appreciate that we've gotten so many done. But I know that there's a lot of steps that are in disrepair. We've got a lot more work to do because there's so many of them in our city. Also bike lanes. As you know, we've gotten a lot of new bike lanes in, 28 different projects of 29 miles. So I think we've more than doubled our amount of bike infrastructure, maybe even tripled or quadrupled how much bike infrastructure we've had in the city in a pretty short period of time. So again, I know we have a long way to go to get to where we'd like to be, but I think it's worth celebrating. We've also gotten a lot of bike racks installed. The bike rack program is has done a lot of work. I know Big Pittsburgh was pretty helpful with that, especially and with some early days with some of the sighting work. So I think this is really exciting and something that I've noticed in my day-to-day life. It's just that it's pretty easy to find a bike rack these days. So these bike projects are they cover a lot of the city, but I think it's also pretty obvious that there's pretty big chunks of the city that have nothing. So again, speaking to just like how much more there is to do. And finally, traffic calming, which I think a lot of you are familiar with. Our neighborhood traffic calming program, which serves primarily quiet. It doesn't necessarily serve like arterials. It'll be more, usually it's more residential streets. But we've had 55 projects, and this has only gone up every single year. This program is the most, I think we heard from the mayor's office, it was the single most asked for thing last year of any across the city is for more speed humps, more traffic calming. So I know last year Sean Stevens was the one that came. He's my counterpart, and he manages the traffic calming program. I asked him for some updates that I could share with you all about the neighborhood traffic calming program. He told me that this year, I think similar to last year, but even a little more streamlined, they are going to be rolling them out in batches. So right now, and there isn't a current update of exactly which ones have been chosen, but the ones that we're starting out with are going to be this group if you're on the engage page and roll down. So this is the first batch. I think if you keep an eye on this engage page, there's going to be an announcement of the next batch coming this year. But I know they have a many planned. They've done a lot of work to streamline the process, streamline the application process, be more transparent in what we've, there's a map that's linked around here somewhere. I'm sure you guys have seen it, where we are, trying to be a little more streamlined in how we approach these things. However, we do know that this program, while it's like really helpful and creates a lot of safety, isn't appropriate for a lot of streets. And so I'll get a little bit more into that in a second. But just finishing up some of the work that we've done in the past 4 years, a lot of new signals, a lot of new ADA ramps. ADA ramps are something that we've scaled up massively since 2019. And signal upgrades, 54 is a huge number, especially just given how expensive these are. So it really goes to show just how much of a priority these kinds of upgrades are. So I'm going to show a little bit about crash trend analysis because I think it speaks well to why we're having some shift in the way that we're approaching projects. This is just to show that fatal crashes have gone up 71% in our city in not a long time. So this is definitely like we're not the only ones facing this. It's a national trend. It's a national tragedy. And so we are trying to combat this trend and bring crashes down, but we're up against a lot. Cars are getting bigger and faster, and it can be tricky. So I think you guys, if you've read the Things Image Zero, this is kind of the bread and butter of it that we've published in the past couple of weeks. But there has been 21 fatal crashes in 2023 alone. That's one of the highest years that we've had. But you can see it's been since 2019. The trends have been pretty bad. So again, we're up against a lot, especially because 1 in 4 involved a pedestrian. And so I think those are always going to be our priority because it's pretty hard as a pedestrian to have a crash that doesn't result in an injury or fatality. And so that's always going to be our focus, is like the vulnerable road users, which also includes bikes. A lot of these crashes have they're increasing across all categories. I think the bicycle crash one is particularly startling. I think that probably is partially because there's been so many more cyclists riding since the pandemic. But it goes to show, more need for safety infrastructure. And the 46% increase in J40 areas, I think, is also worth noting. Some of the contributing factors that the analysis has shown us is that how much of it is related to speeding, to red light running. a third of them of vulnerable road user crashes are at intersections. We know that 2/3 of all crashes are at intersections, so that's always going to be really important to our safety work. And then, of course, lighting plays a pretty big role. I don't have the page pulled up, but there is another LED lighting program updates happening at DOMI. So I think that could be another thing to keep an eye out for as I don't know if that website's launched yet, but there was an LED lighting program website that's coming online soon, if it's not up yet.
I don't think it is yet, Paige, but
Okay,
coming
it will
soon.
be
Coming
soon.
soon.
I got to preview it the other day and it looked good. Thanks, John. So we know that a lot of these are on state-owned roads, which makes this all the more difficult. But an exciting part of it about Vision Zero is that we are working with PennDOT. Our relationship has been getting slowly better with them. We'd really like to see, collaboration, so that way we can target the roads that have the most crashes. And again, only 12% of our city roads, but half the crashes. So I think we're on the right track. You can see we've seen a lot of really great updates on PennDOT roads. I'm thinking of Carson Street. I'm thinking of the Forbes Burn Hollow. That's not a PennDOT owned road, but we did work with PennDOT to get in those bike lane upgrades. So we have a lot of examples of collaboration with PennDOT and the city that we haven't had historically. So I think that that's pretty exciting that they're buying into this Vision Zero network as well and willing to be our partners. So yeah, I've been mentioning this high injury network. I don't know if I've talked about it yet. We talked about it yesterday for those of you that are at Stanton, because Stanton is on the high injury network. It is 10% of the roads in the city, but it's responsible for 62% of total crashes, 76% of fatal crashes, 83% of injuries, 79% of pedestrian crashes, and 62% of bicycle crashes. So I'm really grateful that we have this data, because makes it pretty clear cut what our priorities are going to be and where you'll see the most updates in the coming years. I did pull up. This is all linked to the Complete Streets Advisory Group webpage, but here's the GIS map that you can see online. So it's pretty straightforward and digestible and pretty interesting. I've been looking at it a lot, but I still, I could look at it for days, honestly, to try to figure out some of the things that we need to fix. But you see a lot of those places popping up.
Hey, Paige.
Yeah.
Well, you're on the high injury network map. Can you actually show people how to toggle on and off those layers? I think that's a useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Over here. So I think you can even see some of the projects that are upcoming too, which is kind of cool. But again, this is the layers. Where's the J40? Here's the J40 one. So you can see those where they interact. Some of them, like Penn, from the beginning to end, is on the high entry network, which I'm sure surprises few of you.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So this is some of the projects that we have upcoming. It's nice, it's reassuring that even though this network is new, a lot of our projects are on it. So we're kind of, because we have a feeling of where the most dangerous things are. So it feels validating to see the overlap. And I'm sure we'll see even more coming. We've also done a pretty thorough analysis of the work that we've done so far at DOMI. A really exciting thing is the traffic calming treatments. We use 85th percentile speed, as I'm sure some of you are familiar with. And we've seen a 7 mph reduction across the board on all of our traffic calming projects. So those are the speed tables and speed humps. And percentage of drivers speeding, we see a 55% reduction. So those are really big numbers and really exciting, especially given that these improvements are getting easier for us to install and are not wildly expensive, although we still never aren't able to do as much as we would like, because we would love to put these everywhere in the city. And then similarly, traffic signal replacements, we've been able to see an average crash reduction of a third, which is, again, a very big number. When we prioritize traffic signals, crash history and J40 neighborhood designation are two of the top priorities that determine that priority list. So we're working our way down, triage based on what's most important.
Paige, if I can interrupt you again, do you have like a 5-second explanation on what is 85th percentile speed? Because I know that's something that I feel like I'm always still wrapping my head around, and I know we have some advocates to whom that might be new, and I know it's not easy to explain, but if you could give it a shot.
Sure. Yeah, I wish it's been a while since I took my statistics class, so there might be someone who could even speak to it better than me. But from my understanding, it's the top. If you have 100% of people driving, that average speed that 50% of drivers are going is not considered to be the best indicator for speeding problems. So we've adopted the 85th percentile, and that is I believe, a national standard. I think FHWA uses that in a lot of their traffic engineering work. It's just a standard treatment, and it allows us to, instead of measuring, the average speed, the 85th percentile is a better indicator of the actual speeding problems that are there, while still cutting out that top 15% that can be, total outliers that might skew the data in a way that's not appropriate. So it's just become a national or a traffic engineering standard that we've adopted.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So this is all goes to show this is all part of a safe system approach, which is something the Federal Highway Administration has kind of established. It's a safe systems approach, which says, for example, one thing I think that's really important, you can see on like the right, is that humans make mistakes and humans are vulnerable. So a big thing is that we want to prioritize the most vulnerable road users, the ones that we know are most likely to bear the impacts of the crashes that we see, but also makes room, doesn't expect perfect compliance of the traffic features for them to provide safety. I think that's something that traditional traffic engineering, maybe, which kind of got us to this safety crisis, is that, things like things will work if people are obeying the rules, but of course, things happen, and sometimes you have to have a system that can accommodate for mistakes without having major impacts. So there's a lot of people at DOMI and outside of DOMI that are working on a more holistic approach than just traffic safety interventions that I might get to work on. And I think that's really exciting. Our policy folks are doing a lot to look into more, we'd love to see automated enforcement. We're up against a lot there. I know at a state level, things like red light cameras, reactions to the crashes when they do happen. Something that I think is exciting about Vision Zero is we're going to be doing, sharing the responsibility of these crashes with other departments to make sure, because we know that we can't only use design to solve problems, but it is exciting that we can use design to, make a big dent in some of these horrible statistics. So again, I encourage you to go look at the full presentation. I just kind of wanted to share what I thought was most interesting. But there's a lot of good stuff there. The council briefing went really well. They seem really supportive. Barb Warwick has been championing this for a long time, Councilwoman Warwick. So it's great to see the mayor signing on, and I'm excited to see, how it will transform some of our work. So we can go into questions soon. I guess the only things I wanted to talk about was some of the other, I know you guys are excited to learn about the kinds of projects that we're going to be working on. We don't have engaged pages for all of them yet, but I thought I would share with you. This is still, I think we may be rebranding a bit with Vision Zero, but the Complete Streets page is still live with some of our projects, including the Stanton project. I think I need to fix this because we're still, but in the traffic calming projects, this year we have some corridor projects, which I think are really exciting. Again, we're going to start diving into that high injury network. So not just, we not only have Stanton, which we talked about last night, which is a Vision Zero corridor project with a lot of different traffic calming materials. We're learning how to use traffic calming on higher volume roads, which is going to be really important as we try to go after this high injury network. The other two projects that are our first ever Vision Zero corridor projects, and you'll see more of soon, is Greenfield Ave, which is Greenfield. Over here is Greenfield, right? Yeah. Oh no, that's Beechwood Boulevard. Oh, here it is. Parts of Greenfield Ave. I believe the extents for this project go even beyond just this high injury network. We'll find out more about this. I know there'll be an engage page soon. I'm not managing this project, but I'm very excited to see it on board, come online. And then the other corridor project for Vision Zero is going to be Chartiers, which is over here in the West End. So I think that's really exciting. We haven't done a lot of work in the West End, and this is, one of the worst problems there. So I think it's a great place to start. It's going to be just a traffic calming and safety corridor project. I think Stanton's the only one that includes bike lanes. So let me think if there's other ones that are other projects I want to talk about. And then otherwise, we are going to be deep into planning for the Strip District. We are aiming for 2025. We're going to use this year to work with the stakeholders. We've got a lot of loading and parking concerns. We want to work with, we don't want to rush this. We want to make sure we get it right. The big thing that you're going to see is we're proposing a road diet on Penn. So that's going to be the major discussion, is going to be removing a lane of traffic on Penn. So that way we can add a parking protected bike lane. So that is our first plan of attack. We're going to go slow with it because, as many of you know, we've tried many times. A lot of people have been talking about the Strip District for a long time, especially Bike Pittsburgh. So we want to make sure that we're doing this right and not rushing anything, but we also will have a really big opportunity in 2026 or 2027. We got a federal grant to upgrade all the signals through there. So our goal is to have some quick build upgrades coming in advance of those. So ideally in 2025. So that way we can kind of incorporate that into the signal project that comes later when we make those really big investments, because the signal project, I think that's a $4 million project for the signals between 16th and 31st in the Strip District. So this will be, it gives us a good excuse to kind of go after it now. And so we're going to be working, Jan and I and a bunch of other DOMI folks at trying to develop those relationships and get those details right. So that way we can do, see the safety concerns, safety upgrades we'd like to see. Jan, is there any other projects that I'm forgetting to talk about?
None that come to mind. I'm sure there's others that are like in planning and development early stages, but none that I'm like, none that you're like missing that are sticking out to me right now. So
oh, I guess one other one that I know, I did think of the one that I was thinking of. So the Charles Anderson Bridge, I think we've announced with Oakland that we're going to be putting in a cycle track on the Charles Anderson Bridge when it reopens. So now we're kind of clamoring to figure out what that means for the corridor around it and where that cycle track goes. We love to like seize, kind of like Forbes, we really learned how to like seize an opportunity out of a bad situation by throwing some bike lanes over a bridge. But like Forbes, it means that we have to figure out where those bikes go. And I think for those of you that followed along closely with the Forbes one, that was quite the conversation. It's not always as simple as it may seem. So We're gonna work to find some funding and do the best we can to extend those bike lanes to, a useful terminus. But we don't know what that will look like yet.
Paige, I'm curious, it's not really it's not a DOMI project, but most people probably don't realize it, but there's the Penn Circle stuff too. That's
Oh,
coming.
yeah, of course.
That's a pretty big deal.
Totally, yeah. I wish I could speak to it more. But yeah, there's the protected bike lanes that you've been seeing coming in on Euclid. If you're on Penn approaching Euclid in East Liberty, that's going to be some of the nicest bike lanes we have in the city once they're done. So thank you, URA. We're excited to see it finally come through the finish line. It should be this year.
Yeah, it seems like it's been really trickling in. You see them like they'll be doing like they'll spray paint and then like it'll be months and then there'll be concrete all of a sudden and you're like, oh, they're doing that.
I've
I
been
saw that.
confused too. I'm not really.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go. Sean's got a little bit more. He's been kind of partnering. So some of my colleagues know more than I do, but yeah, I've been kind of confused too at the pace. It feels kind of inconsistent, but it'll be good to see it
Yeah.
finally done. I think I've been hearing about these for a very long time.
Yeah, I saw there was new concrete in front of the new Whole Foods now too. I don't know if you saw it, like
Yes.
pretty recent.
Yes. Yeah. And we are, for some reason, I guess the developers were going to build bike lanes from Whole Foods to connect the Negley bike lanes to those. It sounds like the developer somehow got out of building those bike lanes and DOMI's going to try to come in and make that connection. So we're going to do our best to coordinate it all. But not always as simple as it looks if having multiple different entities building different parts of different things. So we're going to do our best to coordinate it all, but bear with us if it seems like a hot mess.
Well, thank you, Paige. Jan, did you have anything else to add, or did you have anything else, Paige, before we go into questions?
I'm good. Jan, do you have anything?
No, I'm good. I'm here mostly to help Paige answer any questions that I can. So,
Are you both able to stick around until 7? I know we said we'd get you out by 6:45, which is gotten here very quickly. Can you stick around for a little bit longer?
yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate you. I want to start us off with a question, then we'll open it up to everybody. And Paige, I'm going to take down your screen share too. That's all right. We can bring it back up if we need it. Last night at the Stanton Ave meeting, I think it became pretty clear that y'all have a lot that you want to do, especially with this high injury network and really focusing on the corridors. Like really, it's neat to see the focus on longer stretches of road instead of like tiny little short bits at a time. But you need more money, and that was like made loud and clear last night. I think my question is a little bit more for Jan, is how can we as advocates help the mayor's office get DOMI more money, especially in these upcoming years where we're going to see some constriction in the budget as ARPA funds and some other resources run out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way, and I think Paige alluded to this a little bit already, but is just the budget engagement process is part of the reason why there was more than a doubling, I think, in our neighborhood traffic calming project budget for 2024 from 2023 and past years. And so for those who don't know, the city of Pittsburgh, we start our budget process for the next year in May or June of the current year. And so be on the lookout for a series of meetings in the next couple of months. Again, those typically happen May, June. Like to get all of our departments out there. They listen to folks about what they want, what they want each department to do. But then there's also surveys that kind of speak to, what the magnitude of requests, like are more people asking for DOMI projects? Are more people asking for more investment in environmental services? Are more people asking for investment in our public safety department. And so, you know, we try and incorporate that as much as we can. Obviously, you know, there are budget limitations. There's only so much money that can go into the complete budget. And so really look for, you know, the input that we can from community members to inform how we can divvy that up. And again, like I said, for this year, it resulted in that I believe more than doubling for neighborhood traffic calming projects, which, you know, the result of which we're already starting to see.
Thanks. I see Mary has her hand up, and then folks, if you have a question, get in the queue. After Mary, I'm going to ask Eric if he has any that he saw from the chat that we want to respond to. So go ahead, Mary.
So hi Paige, thanks for this. You mentioned the safe systems and showed a graphic. I saw that graphic in a presentation from the Federal Highways Administration and also in a subsequent presentation by PennDOT. So we have federal and state guidance, at least at the level of giving presentations, that endorse this. Now, we've all seen reluctance on the part of PennDOT to deal with bicycle infrastructure on state-owned roads, and there's a number of comments in the chat that reinforce that. So my question is, given that we have not only the City Vision Zero mandate, but also the federal mandate, which is at least acknowledged by PennDOT, if not fully supported, does this help us get PennDOT to be more responsive about the state-owned roads in the city?
Hey, Mary. Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think we're starting to see that result. There's also been, you know, over time, a lot of new folks have come in and out of PennDOT. So we have like one example, Trish Meeks. I don't know if some of the advocates are familiar with her. She's our statewide bike ped coordinator. Is that her title? Yeah, Eric's nodding. So we have some really good allies at like the state level, at like in Harrisburg, I'll say. We also know that Philadelphia, I think can't remember, is that District 3? We're District 11 for PennDOT, but I think District 3, whatever. The Philadelphia PennDOT district has installed traffic calming themselves, which is amazing. They installed some on some state-owned roads. So we're kind of looking to them to say, like, you've developed this relationship with PennDOT that seems to be progressing. Like, how can we take a page out of your book and do the same here? So we are seeing improvements. I will say I've had some meetings with when the consultants were doing the design for the Charles Anderson Bridge. We asked them to do some crazy things. PennDOT had some questions, but we had a meeting and it went better than I've ever seen a meeting with PennDOT go, resulting bike infrastructure. So I do think things are heading in the right direction. I hope that we can continue to advocate for them, because I think it's important that they know that we represent the city when we're saying that we want these crazy things like bike lanes to be incorporated into their projects. But you know, the science is starting to back us in a way that is really exciting. There's been, you know, bike lanes have been around for a while now, and traffic calming's been around for a while now, and we have seen a lot of very documented success. Like, if you guys want to look into some crazy federal things, you can Google FHWA, like proven safety countermeasures, and there's a whole website from the federal government itself that's saying, put in bump outs, put in pedestrian refuge islands. We know they work. We know bike lanes work to improve safety. So I think we're definitely heading in the right direction, even if it is sometimes not as fast as we'd like to see. Right. In terms of
so I posted in the chat links to SPC presentations by both federal and PennDOT, and the FWHA presentation had some of the proven success things that you just mentioned. So it's there if people want to go and look at it. But I was recently at a meeting about the Squirrel Hill interchange, and PennDOT was willing to talk to us about bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. But they still seem to be in the, well, we'll see if it works out that we can accommodate this frame of mind, rather than the, oh yes, we must do this frame of mind. So I think we still have a ways to go.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Eric, do you got one from the chat that you saw?
Yeah, I just want to add really quick to this part of the conversation. The county and the city are also going to be coming up with a Vision Zero action plan through SPC. So one thing that I think is important to realize with the Vision Zero stuff is that like our region got denied money from the federal government because we didn't have a Vision Zero commitment. And that's why they went and got this, the county, and SPC is getting this county commitment going. I think it's going to take about a year, my understanding, but it is something that's also going to be, another layer kind of higher up in the city government where they're going to make a county commitment of some sort. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out or what that's going to look like, but there's federal money to make that happen. The one question I saw in this chat that really hasn't been answered yet, Stu asked the main question. There was a lively chat. I think we got to the answer for most of it, except for the part about speed limits in the city. I don't really know the latest with that, how we're able to affect speed limits. I know, like, obviously with the park thing changed, and I've been seeing more 15-mile-per-hour speed limit signs showing up in park roads, but I still don't know the latest with the other local roads. I was wondering if you could, I guess, elaborate on that, Paige.
In terms of lowering speed limits further
Correct.
than 25,
Yeah.
yeah, I certainly have not heard of anything. Although I will say sometimes, we are creating traffic calming devices where we set the design speed far below 25 miles per hour. And we are starting to see some of the results of roads that go even slower than that. It sounds like a lot of the issue is with enforcement of lower speed limit roads, I think, but I can't really speak to the policy of it. I don't know if Jan, if you have heard anything about
I don't
this.
either. I know there's a little bit of confusion with some of the the park speed limit policy. People are asking about like speed limits adjacent to parks, but I think the way that that policy was like worded is just for interior roads. So like things like Reservoir Drive through Highland Park, roads that cut through parks, they're able to lower them. But unfortunately, it doesn't apply to like roads that are adjacent to playgrounds or parks yet. So again, I don't know what the barriers are to like leveraging that any further. But if you're hearing people ask like, oh, I thought this was supposed to be reduced to 15 miles an hour, I think the initial legislation just started with those interior roads.
Thanks. Jake, what do you got?
So my question is about the methodology for those pedestrian figures. How's that being measured?
So you mean the pedestrian crashes?
No, the mode share. So I was
Oh, I
I was
see.
a little surprised to see it down by like almost a third, which seems, I mean, that seems very concerning. And so I want to know kind of how that was collected, and then if we have, I know you mentioned the pandemic, but if we have any other potential root cause analysis for that rather alarming figure.
Yeah, that's a good question. I included it because I thought it was shocking myself. Unfortunately, I don't know how they collected this data. But I will say that if that Complete Streets advisory group page does have the full recording of when they presented that to City Council, so they might elaborate there. Sorry, I can't answer your question. I'd be curious myself, so if I find out, I'll try to follow back.
Thanks. It's an important question, Jake, and one, seeing that statistic kind of shocked me as well. I think it's a national trend as well. It's not just happening in Pittsburgh, as I understand it. So I think I saw an article not too long ago that explained a little bit why we're seeing that. I'll see if I can find that and share that. Yeah. Eric, was there anything else from the chat that we wanted to highlight?
Yeah, sure. Allison asked, considering the high injury network is nearly every major road, are there metrics for how they'll be prioritized?
Hey, Allison. I think right now I'm not sure exactly how we're going to prioritize them besides saying that we're prioritizing this Temper Street, but it's a good point. It is most of our major roads. I hope that in the short term, what it will at least look like is as funding comes through that we've already know is coming, like, for example, this $4 million for the Penn Ave signals, we can make sure that if it overlaps with some of these, that those get, I think it's going to be fun, like based on the opportunities that come. That's an informal policy and maybe not a satisfying answer, but that is how I see it playing out as someone who gets the implementation done. But I do think it will also help us, as considering J40 is like a federal thing, it will help us prioritize it for grant applications. So there's too many variables for me to say exactly how this will play out in terms of prioritization, but it's, you know, it's a start that we have the roads, at least 10% of roads that we know we want to prioritize.
I have just a related question that I get a lot from advocates, especially in the neighborhood traffic calming side of things, which is, can the public see in any way the prioritization or the, like, where their neighborhood falls in the long list of neighborhood traffic calming requests? Because we know it's really long, and we know that some are much worse than others. And we know that y'all are, you know, thinking really hard about about who needs it the most. Was there any way to really wrap our own heads around what that ranking looks like? I see thumbs up from Claude. I know that's something that their neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good question. If Sean was here, he might have a better answer than I do. I will say we make this big priority list. We have the ones that rise to the top. We make a proposal, but then kind of like the paving list, it then kind of gets cycled through a little bit of politics. I think that makes sure that we have this top priority list, but it's not always quite as we want. In the effort to spread the love, we try to make sure that we're picking relatively equal in each council district, because that's a big part. You know, the funding comes from the capital budget, which is determined by council. Everyone's chipping in. And so I know that's a big part of it, is that we may have this list, but then the exact order isn't always quite as clear cut as the exact prioritization, even if it does help us like decide what that first group is that we're picking from. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think the margins also with some of the neighborhood traffic calming are a lot finer, you know, like the number of accidents and the speeds are, you know, the difference of, I don't know, less than a mile per hour, or, you know, the difference in volume of 100 or a couple hundred vehicles. And from year to year, you know, like an accident or recollecting data might move something up or down the list. So it's, you know, more dynamic than like, this is the 100 projects and this is the order that we're going to do it in. You know, if things change, if one road changes and it pushes a bunch of traffic to another street, or we suddenly see a lot of more speeding on one street, you know, we want to be able to move that up the priority list, you know, and respond like that. So like Paige said, there is some internal prioritization, but it's just so you know, it can be so flexible that like providing it and you know, providing it without that context would not really be beneficial, because, you know, 5 projects could jump the project that was near and dear to your heart because of new information that DOMI collected, or, you know, an increase in crash volumes on those streets.
Got it. Thank you. We have time for one more quick question. Ben, I'm wondering if it's okay if I go with Tess, because I don't get to hear her voice very often. Is that okay?
Okay.
Ben's had his hand up for a long time. I'm fine with Ben going.
Okay, Tess. Ben, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I was just curious about the parking protected bike lanes. I know you mentioned Penn Ave might get one as part of the strip changes. And so I'm curious, I guess, what's driving that? Because right now we don't have a lot of that. We have, I guess, the opposite, a bike lane next to parking. And my understanding is some of that's like a bit of a gray area in the law, but that's like mainly adheres to state-owned roads, which also might change because of a bill. So like it's a bit of a gray area why we, I guess, haven't been doing it. So like what's changed that we're now willing to do parking protected bike lanes? And also might we go back and change some of the bike lanes that aren't, you know, parking protected? Like I would love to see that long bike lane on Liberty Ave that runs through like, I don't know, what is that? 3-4 different neighborhoods become parking protected. So like is that a potential? Like I guess what's changed?
Yeah, great question. So I'll say the law is not as strict as like it's not allowed. It says you have to park within, I think, 8 inches of a curb. It kind of depends on how you define a curb. We at the city have decided to define a curb as something we can install. So that is what has given us the flexibility to install them in a few places. I will say, as much as I love a parking protected bike lane, they're not always as great of a tool on our very narrow constrained roads as they might be in other cities that have a wider right of way. You really need like an extra, Liberty's a good example. Because I live off of Liberty. I think about this a lot. I have proposed this before as a suggestion. But the reality with Liberty, because it's a good example, is that because there's the two bike lanes we have are not even buffered. To make the space to do a parking, you need an extra 2 or 3 feet to do a parking protected bike lane that you might not have currently. And the reason for that is that door zone is a lot more deadly if you're trapped between a curb. So you just need a couple extra feet to accommodate those door zones. So with Liberty, if you lay out the street design as I have, you could consider a parking protected climbing lane, but it would be at the cost of no downhill bike lane, which, that's a conversation for another day. But I think it's a good example of, in that curb to curb, you couldn't fit 2 parking protected bike lanes. We're a couple feet short from having that be a safe condition. Penn is an interesting one. I don't want to make any promises because it is kind of a tricky one where we haven't been able to get official confirmation that PennDOT is going to let us do this in advance of the signal project. So we're kind of in a precarious place right now in terms of putting them in. We think that because we have a lot of space and we're only looking at an inbound facility and we have a full lane's worth, we think it's a really good spot because it's not too constrained and we think it'll be the safest option. So we're going to work really hard to lobby that in this case, we think it will work. We're hoping PennDOT will work with us on this. But I don't want to make any promises yet. So we are looking at them other places. I think the unfortunate answer is they're not as great of a tool in Pittsburgh as simple as it might seem. But I'd like to see more of them going forward regardless. Did I answer every part of your question?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I'll also just mention before I go that, and they'll say this too, but we have a pretty good working relationship with Bike Pittsburgh. They bring questions to us all the time, so we can always follow back with, relay through them if we have technical questions that we can answer, like that one. I'm very happy to do so.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Just give some sparkles or some emoji in the reaction button. Just some gratitude to Paige and to Jan for playing backup and joining us as well, and just being so supportive and answering our questions. There are a lot more in the chat as well. So thank you all for being very engaged in this, everybody. I will there's a lot of good stuff happening in the chat, so I'm going to save this and make sure it's sent in follow-up. And if you still have any like burning questions, like Paige said, send them my way. I'll do my best to either answer them directly from our perspective at Bike Pittsburgh or send them over to Paige and Jan if that's more in their territory. And yeah,
I was just gonna say, if there's anything in the chat, we can try, and if folks want to summarize, questions, we can try and get some more answers to you in the next couple weeks. So
great. Thank you. And thanks again for taking your time on a beautiful evening to talk with us about this stuff. Appreciate you too.
Yep.
We appreciate
Thanks, everybody.
You too. Thanks. See ya.
Great. We are going to transition now into some updates from Bike Pittsburgh. So Eric, why don't you take us away with Vision Zero and Safe Trips in the Strip and the rest you got for us?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. I need to refine the window. That was great. So glad they were able to join us. I did want to maybe directly answer a question I saw in the chat before moving on from Alexander about who controls PennDOT. Are they elected officials? Are they appointed? Basically yes to all of that. Who controls PennDOT is ultimately the governor, but and laws. And so the whole thing with the parking protected bike lane is that it's a state law, and the way PennDOT is interpreting the state law that's on the books is that they can't install parking protected bike lanes, not for any reason other than it's a technicality in the vehicle code. We've been working for a number of years to try to get that changed. It has not succeeded. It is It has passed the House side of the state government three times, 4 times. I lost count. And it is passed again recently, and it just goes and sits in the Senate. And so we've been trying to get it to move out of the Senate for a number of years, and it hasn't gotten there. We're also trying an alternate approach of just seeing if PennDOT can issue a different policy interpretation of the law. Getting a little weeds here, but I hope hopefully that answers your question, Alexander. Anyway, yeah, safe trips in the Strip. We'll start there. Paige mentioned that that's coming up. We don't have a lot of details yet in terms of timing, but what we're gathering is there's going to be likely a public meeting sometime in May. We don't have a date yet, either early May. I've heard either early May or end of May. I don't really, middle of May is out because people are out of town, but it's either going to be in the beginning or end of May is the target date for the next public meeting. And we really want to make sure to get a lot of support at that public meeting. So I'm going to pick on Ben in a second, but Ben's been really helpful in helping get more people onto our Safe Trips in the Strip email list. So we have a directed email list you can find on our website, BikePGH.org/strip district. And right now, the main ask is just to get people to sign onto that list so you can be the first to know about if there's any action alerts in terms of showing up to public meetings, writing letters, etc. So right now we're just still in the collection phase. We've been collecting names for a long time. There's been several public meetings over the past several years. So if you were on that list before, you should have gotten emails for those public meetings. But this next one in May is going to be kind of a big one where they're going to actually go through and present the design solutions for the bike connection to and through the Strip District, basically connecting the Penn Ave bike lane to Lawrenceville and the Liberty Ave bike lanes and points east. I don't know, Ben, do you have anything you want to add to that? What I just said? You've been doing a great job in getting the word out. Ben's been passing out flyers and postcards to people and talking to a lot of residents. Ben is a resident of the Strip District. Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess I can talk on it just a little bit, maybe hopefully recruit some people to my effort. So like like Eric said, I've been helping them spread the word about these upcoming projects. I'm very excited for them. I live in the Strip, and so it would directly affect me, but thousands of people. I've been looking at some data. For instance, Pogo data. By my estimates, there's something like 20,000 Pogo trips through the Strip every year, and that's just going to keep going up. And that's not even, non-Pogo trips, so who knows? So I think these are going to be great. So I really want to make sure they happen. So the main thing I've been doing that I could use some help with, if anyone's interested, is first of all, flyering. I don't know if I got the I have little, basically like postcard-sized flyers. I go around and I've been, handing them out to people, in the super busy areas like the terminal, talk to people, give them the spiel. There's a QR code they can use it to sign up, and I've been trying to get a lot of people that way. And then the other thing I do want to do in the future, we've been discussing this with like Pittsburgh, is like maybe setting up some kind of tent or like tabling near one of the bike lanes. Maybe, probably like the Penn Ave bike lane, since that's super high traffic, especially on the weekend. And, trying to catch bikers, right? If you're using the bike lane that already exists, you probably want more bike lanes. So we think that will be a good place to catch them. So yeah, if you're interested in helping in any way, or have other ideas, feel free to reach out to me. I'm in the Slack channel, and I can drop my email in the chat if you aren't in the Slack and need another way to reach me. But yeah.
Thanks, Ben. The other thing I wanted to briefly mention was the big news about the Vision Zero resolution. That's been an advocacy effort of ours for a long time. Starting back in 2014, we had 3 policy initiatives. For those of us that were at our members meeting, we were looking to get a complete streets policy, a new bike plan, and a Vision Zero commitment. Essentially, what a Vision Zero commitment is the city's committing to eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries. And what that means is it's sort of an umbrella concept to then eliminating traffic fatalities is more than just engineering, we'll say. So the complete streets policy is a component of achieving zero traffic fatalities. That's one component that can help direct with the engineering, but there's education. There might even be some internal policy changes. Basically, the idea is that the city's going to be creating a task force to put like different departments together. Everything from public safety to planning to enforcement and stuff like that to figure out how to best target traffic injury or traffic fatalities and serious injuries. And they're going to like basically issue come up with ideas on how to achieve that. Maybe it's new policy changes, maybe it's new laws. For instance, New York City, they realized due to Vision Zero that a lot of fatalities were happening because trucks were turning into bicyclists and pedestrians, and then people would end up underneath the rear wheel. The rear wheel would roll over people. So New York City, for instance, after seeing this problem, required all city large vehicles to install side guards, and any contractor needs to have a side guard. So it's things like that. Other cities are exploring things like maybe all city vehicles can have a traffic limiter on them. So they must do the speed limit, which essentially makes a pace car for the city because those vehicles are out all day driving around doing their job. And if they're able to do the speed limit, that means everyone behind them has to do the speed limit. So there's things like that that can, maybe come out of this this sort of Vision Zero resolution. But anyway, it was passed yesterday in council for preliminary vote. On Tuesday, it's going to get its formal vote, which we predict it will get passed, and then the mayor has to sign it. And that also opens us up to a lot of funding, like I mentioned earlier. So it's a really good thing in general for the city. We've joined lots of cities around the country and the world in committing to ending traffic fatalities and serious injuries. Any questions on that, I guess, before I move on to the next thing? It's a lot of policy wonky stuff. But policy really does change things. We've really seen how the complete streets policy, has changed a lot of how the city has done business. And so we're excited for this next phase. Seeing none, I'll move on. We are also working on a project to highlight dangerous intersections and places, especially for pedestrians. So we have a new website, a new page on our website. Seth, can you show the sticker? Yeah, so we're creating a sticker where people can put this up, and it will direct people to our website to a page where basically they can learn about facts, stats about what's, the problem of traffic fatalities and serious injuries in Pittsburgh and around the country, and then give them a place to see how to plug in and help solve this problem. It'll have links to getting involved in bike advocacy like you all are doing, getting involved in the city's Vision Zero proposal and Vision Zero policy. So things like that. Anyway, we'll be looking for people to help install these around town. We're kind of almost considering this like a guerrilla marketing campaign for the Vision Zero policy to help hold the city accountable to it. Anyway, reach out to Seth. I don't know if we have is that the best way, Seth? Maybe you can explain how we can collect people.
Right now, the best way is just to email me. Especially if you know of an intersection near you where there was a fatality. We also have a spreadsheet that maybe Eric can pull up quickly and put in the chat, where you can look that up and see. We have a not yet comprehensive list, but we're continuing to build it out, of where both bike and pedestrian fatalities have happened around the city and in some cases into the county. But yes, email me, seth@bikepgh.org, if you are up for putting some of these stickers up. And I will probably get them to you 2 weeks from now, because Eric and I are going to be traveling next week in DC for the National Bike Summit, and then taking some time to catch up after that. But yeah, please email me if you're up for helping share these.
Yeah, right now we have a list of approximately the last 5 or 6 years of pedestrian fatalities. And so if you are interested in helping, you can take a section, for instance, a section of the city, and maybe install the stickers. When we can give you more information, but Seth can give you more information on that. And I think those are the main updates I have, other than open streets seasons coming up. We're still struggling with some of the permitting for the first one, but it's looking like it's going to be a lot earlier than the past. So it's going to be a wild week of Bike to Work Day on May 9th, so Thursday, May 9th, and then May 11th is looking like it's going to be the first open streets. So we've always done it on Memorial Day weekend, but this year, due to some circumstances, we had to change it. And it's looking like it's going to be May 11th. And then the last weekend in June and the last weekend in July, like every other year. And the other big changes, there's the June one, I believe, is going to actually be in the Hill District, which is a new route for us.
Yep, June 27th in the Hill District, and then July 29th, I believe, will be also a Saturday through East Liberty and Homewood. Like it's going into open.
Question,
Yeah.
where's the May one going to be? Do you know yet? Or is that one of the things still up in the air too?
What we're shooting for is north side to downtown to south side. Or vice versa.
That's a really good time for bike ped committees to get out and engage people and bring in some new members and encourage people to be part of your work, especially if you're along the route, if it goes through part of your neighborhood. Anything else, Eric, or can I take us from here?
Yeah, go for it.
We got a lot of stuff for you tonight, folks. It's capital budget season. This is basically the time when you send your requests of the changes that you'd like to see to city infrastructure, new things, fixed things, big fixed things, to your council person, and they then hopefully pass that on to the mayor. I won't get into too much detail now because I think a lot of you know what that is and how that works, if that is a role that is something for you to do. But I will share, we had a training a couple weeks ago all about how to use city budgets and plans to move your campaign forward as a really useful tactic. So I encourage you to watch that. Even if you're not actually in the city, there's some useful tips for people out in the county, because every municipality has a budget and it's an opportunity to influence and get the change that you want. So check out that training, and I'll be following up with several of you to find out how is your capital budget process going and what support do you need to make sure that you can get that in this year. I will also say we have a series of trainings coming up this year, which I will put into the chat. We have our similar advocacy skills training series as we did last year. You can go to our website to see the full list of workshops, but on the 26th, coming up pretty soon, we have our Choosing Winning Campaigns training. I would love for folks to sign up for that. We have a guest trainer from California, who actually grew up in Pennsylvania and kind of knows our territory pretty well, who's going to be talking about how do you choose campaigns that are effective out of all of the ideas that you might have? How do you focus on the ones that are really worth your time, your effort, and are also nevertheless empowering and exciting? In May, on the 4th, we're going to have our walk audit training, which is how do you use a very effective tool of going for walks in your neighborhood to identify problems and also show your elected officials what really, really matters. And then on June 1st, we're going to have our strategies for winning campaigns training, which I know Claude has done. I don't think anybody else here has done. Ben, I hope you come out this year for our strategies for winning campaigns training. It's a full day, intensive, so to speak, but you learn a lot. You walk in with some ideas for what you might want to do in your community for a campaign, and you walk away with having chosen one that's the best to focus on and a clear campaign strategy for how do you move forward. So I know Claude's made good use of that. I know a lot of the people who did it with us last year made really good use of it. So I hope folks, please join us. Those two last trainings will be in person in Homewood. So hope that you join us for those. And Eric mentioned all the other events that I was going to share, but I will make sure that you have the link as well to our civic calendar, which has all sorts of events on it. So keep an eye on that. I wanted to, in our last just like couple of minutes here, share a tool with you very, very briefly. called Project Sidewalk. Has anybody heard of Project Sidewalk other than Breen? And don't see anybody having used it. It's really neat. And I'm gonna see, set up my screen to share here really quick. This is a tool that I think everybody here could make really good use of, whether you're in the city or even in the county. It is quite exciting. And we've been talking with the developers who made it. They're at the University of Washington, doing some really cool work. So basically what Project Sidewalk is you can see this kind of graphic here. It's basically doing a virtual walk audit. It essentially enables you to go block by block, foot by foot through streets in your neighborhood and identify what is working and what's not working. So you can see in this graphic, somebody is flagging a curb cut and the quality of that curb cut. That curb cut might not be so great. I'm going to show you that in a minute, and you can indicate that. Ultimately, what this enables us to do is, I'll show this to you. If we can, start to gather some more data about this, we can start to see a heat map of sorts of where are the concentrations of pedestrian issues throughout the entire city. And they only have certain neighborhoods turned on right now, but they're actually able, at a simple request, to turn on neighborhoods or municipalities throughout the whole county. They don't want to turn all of them on at one time because it can kind of be overwhelming. But if you want your own area turned on, we can turn that on for you within the bounds of Allegheny County. And what it ultimately will produce is a map as well that looks like this, where you can see for all of these dots, everything from what's working, such as a curb ramp or a crosswalk, to what's not working, like obstacles in the path, broken sidewalks, missing sidewalks. You can see that Homewood is actually already pretty well done, but other neighborhoods like my own in Swissvale has a long way to go. Basically, this is very useful to help you make the case for capital budget requests, also identifying campaigns to work on as a group that you might not have expected that there are some particular sidewalk issues or crossing issues or other pedestrian issues that are worth your attention. And also by doing this, using this tool, it contributes to our broader movement for safe streets with that power of data collection. And it's kind of like a game. It's kind of gamified, which is it makes it really easy. It makes it really fun. If you join, it's really easy. It's pittsburgh.projectsidewalk.org. You can go and sign in, and you'll be able to do a tutorial that will guide you through it. But this is what it looks like. If you want to pick your own neighborhood, you basically go in here, go to the main page, scroll down. If you just hit explore, it'll assign you a random street. But if you scroll down, you can see this map and go to your own neighborhood and click here to help finish this neighborhood. And it'll load up and it'll give you a little bit of a reminder of how this works. And you hit start mission. And it will then, oh wow, this is actually my street. This I didn't plan it that way, but that's pretty cool. And you can actually click through in Street View. And I actually happen to know that this, well, yes, if I can zoom in here, this is horrible. I walk my dog on this every day. This is a curb cut. So I'm gonna mark this as a curb ramp, but I'm gonna mark it as incredibly poor because it has a surface problem. It experiences pooled water, and it ultimately, as well, you can't tell, but it's not level with the street. And I'm going to just give a quick description here. Sediment builds up, making it not possible for wheelchair users to get into or onto the sidewalk. And so you can do tags like this. This curb cut, on the other hand, is actually quite good. So I'm going to mark that as a 1, and I don't have much more to say about it. I can mark that there's a crosswalk here. I would say it's not great because it's kind of an uneven surface. And you can go through like that and kind of follow your whole street. Maybe there's broken sidewalks. Maybe there's no sidewalk. You can also mark pedestrian signals. It really enables you to do that walk audit virtually from the comfort of your own home, and ultimately then get some really useful data. When you're done, another very helpful tool is maybe is to use the validate tool. So maybe you've marked a bunch, but validating basically says, is this a curb ramp? Yes, this is a curb ramp. Is this a curb ramp? Yes. Yep, that's a curb ramp. Yep, that's a curb ramp. So tags that people have already made, you're verifying whether or not they are legit or not. So I wanted to share this tool because I would really love to see people starting to use this. And I'm curious, is this something that you think might be useful in your community? I'd love to hear just some very brief thoughts about Project Sidewalk here. Claude?
Yeah, I think this would be really useful. My one question is the Street View as updated as the Google Street View is?
Yes.
Okay.
And I got a map of I don't remember the numbers, but I know the developers told me that like actually most of Pittsburgh is fairly up to date. Of course, there are some side streets that aren't so much. And if you go into validation, you'll see some older pictures because they started doing this a while ago, actually. But yeah, they're not perfect, but they're fairly up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Tess?
Sorry, couldn't find my mic. I think this is fantastic. And does it cost anything? Does the app cost anything?
Nope. Everything is free. It's coming out of a research. It's free. It's open source. It's a research project out of University of Washington, so it's not attached to a company or a business. Their big picture goal is to be using the data that is essentially trained by humans, I think, to start train some AI models to start noticing these issues in an automated way. So that's cool. And ideally then can kind of like step through it. But as of now, they're making all of the data publicly available, like that map that I showed you earlier, so we can start to use it now.
So you don't have to go out and look for it. You can do it from your own home.
Correct.
So I was wondering, are you able to like come out and I'm just thinking about people who are disabled, are not able to go out and, look for these things. It's usually, people like me in a wheelchair, we run into it and then, it's kind of a dead end for us, or it's a problem that we're frustrated with, and it's something that doesn't get solved, or it's just a problem for a very long time. And then when it does get solved, then we run into the next problem. And so I'm just wondering if you would be willing to come to like the city council task force or something like that and talk to other people about getting on board with this.
I'd love to talk to you more about what that could look like. I'd want to get really clear on like what is our strategy there and what is our approach. That's something that Breen, who I don't know if Breen is still on. I don't see Breen's name anymore. Breen and I have been starting to convene a citywide pedestrian advocacy group. And this project Sidewalk is one of the things that we're likely going to start using to collect some more data around the city. So it might be neat to have you actually join our next call, Tess.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
we can continue the conversation there.
There's so many things. I mean, it's like you covered it when you filled that out, but there were some things that I might have added to what you said. As a wheelchair user,
Yeah.
that just to amplify it even more. That, but
and
yeah, that was really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Tool. I will say it's not going anywhere unless we bring it somewhere. So it doesn't,
right.
It's 311, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to collect the data and then we need to use the data. Right. And so anyway, I just wanted to make that.
Oh no, I thought it was great. It's the kind of data that we're always talking about and how do we get it? And it's like, wow, look at this tool. So it's really cool to see.
what I just did that on my street. Like I know some things about my street that you can't see in Google Street View, but I'm able to actually tag on there because I walk it every day, right?
Yeah,
Um, which is super useful. So yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I definitely encourage y'all, pittsburgh.projectsidewalk.org. Check it out. Throw a pizza party with your bike ped committee and, bring computers and do it together or what have you. Yeah, Roy, we were talking about through and what they're obviously not based here in Pittsburgh, so they don't have the bandwidth to like get things sent over to 311 here in Pittsburgh. I was talking to Armin with Dashcam for Your Bike about how could we maybe hook up the 311 system with the API from this Project Sidewalk tool. So it's something I'm thinking about. I think more likely you would just find the issues and then et cetera. But maybe we can share this data with the city and they can do something about it. So we're a little bit over time. I just want to hear from Thomas and then we'll wrap up here.
Two questions. One, procedural, you said you were going to send out the chat for the meeting to everybody. I know there were a ton of links. I'm on a mobile device, so jumping back and forth to web browsers is tough.
Yes, I will send out the chat. I'm using that as a reminder to save it once again. So it is saved.
Okay, thank you. Other question, and I think this sort of got a little touched on in the presentation from the city, but is there someone somewhere that could tell us in a user-friendly manner when you see a sidewalk that you believe is bad for whatever reason, whose responsibility it is to fix and what to do about it? I feel like they were talking about that there is some city work going on in terms of sidewalks. I'm not clear on what city sidewalks exist as opposed to private landowner sidewalks, and then to the extent that it is a private landowner, then what tools does the city have, either carrot or stick, to actually get sidewalks repaired, rehabilitated, etc. I live in Southside, and quite honestly, some of the worst offenders are businesses who really have no excuse. I feel like punishing Aunt Edna for her sidewalk might be unfair, but punishing a business is absolutely desirable. And the fact that they have this mess and even I think for sidewalks, I think one of the other concerns that I've had with the city is snow and ice removal is poor in a lot of areas, and there's really no enforcement. There is a law, but no one enforces it. So what good does the law do if someone falls on the ice and hurts themselves? I guess you can sue, but ideally you would not be in the position to have that happen. And I don't really feel like the city's done much, if anything, in that regard either.
Yeah. I would love to get a presentation about sidewalks specifically, because I think there's so much to unpack there and there's so much.
Right. I think that could be a whole, that could be like a whole 90-minute meeting just on that.
When it's city owned, it's DPW's responsibility. If it's privately owned, it's private responsibility. And then there's supposed to be some enforcement mechanism for finding the person until they fix their sidewalk. But if they don't have any money to fix their sidewalk to begin with, fines just add to the problem. So we really have a systemic challenge.
There's definitely some carrot and some stick that both need to be used there. But I think, just in terms of like what is the current situation? How do we as citizens, like what can we do? I think it could be a whole meeting unto itself. Let's just have a workshop on sidewalks and let's discuss as a group of interested citizens, what can we do? What can the city do? What can landowners, or what grant money is available? Like where can we go with this? I feel like it's a deceptively simple concept that gets really complicated when you dig into it. It's so
complicated. I'm keeping an eye on the city's pilot program for sidewalk repairs in Homewood that I am hoping they will learn some things from and then roll out elsewhere, which is basically trying to find that balance of carrot and stick. And
I didn't even know that was going on, so that's good to know.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's pretty neat, and I'm hoping we learn some things that can then be translated throughout the rest of the city in terms of again, supporting residents, also holding businesses accountable, doing it appropriately. So the city's thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay. If we could either do like a separate session or maybe just something about that, I think there could be a lot of good information there. I mean, maybe things that are already going on are there are opportunities that we can help people or take care of problems even without waiting for, you know, movement of heaven and earth.
Yep. Well, I've taken that to note, and I will. I'll think about how we can.
Can I drop in one idea about this?
Sure.
We had some discussions about this in Squirrel Hill when we had some pedestrian activists, and it kind of went on the shelf. But part of the problem for a homeowner is that there's a big initial cost to bringing out a contractor. And one of the possibilities is that can be explored is for the neighborhood groups to form, say, block-long coalitions of homeowners who want to jointly do their own sidewalks, but the neighborhood group puts together a package and gets in a contractor to reduce the per property cost, because the cost of mobilization is then amortized across the block. And that can be done on a neighborhood.
Seems like a practical solution to a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to toss that out for people to think about in advance of this other meeting.
Also, just in terms of nuts and bolts, but nuts and bolts are really important in this one. I just had mine redone, and one of the issues that I had was if you're doing a sidewalk as a one-off, you have to level it off with the neighbor on either side. So that becomes a bit of a challenge, since you need to deal with drainage and street, you know, curbs height, and there's a lot more strange nuances to it than I ever thought. And
there sure are.
When I had the discussion with the contractor, I said, I realize I am asking you for 4 different mutually exclusive things that I want the sidewalk to do. And he said, yep.
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, but I mean, if you were doing multiple sidewalks at a time, that eliminates some of that risk and some of that issue where you can tear up 3 yards at a time and then not have to level each of them individually.
Yeah,
it also means they only have to mobilize and bring the equipment out once.
Sure.
I put a link to the article in that's about that homewood project in the chat, so you can check that out. And I think they're actually implementing some of those very ideas, Mary and Thomas, in various ways. So it's exciting.
Awesome.
Folks, we are over our time here. Thank you for your attention. I know this was a very giving you lots of information session. For our next one in June, it's going to be much more conversational, where we're going to hear from different groups and the campaigns they're working on, and have it be an opportunity for those groups to get some support and feedback. So look forward to that in June in person. It'll be much more collaborative and discussion oriented. And thank you for your attention. Thank you for your enthusiasm as always. Keep up the great work. Let me know how I can help, and have a wonderful evening. We will see you on the streets.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye, y'all.